Hello, everyone. This is Paul Berman with ECODIT. We'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, which is the third and final webinar in our series of webinars for the CEFF-CCA project, which is a clean energy financing facility for the Caribbean and Central America. This is the Risk Takers webinar and wraps up our series, and we have some very exciting speakers that I'm very pleased to have Jorge, the project chief of Party, introduce for you in just a minute. A quick word on ECODIT. ECODIT is a USAID implementing partner based out of Arlington, Virginia. We have implemented a number of energy and climate projects for USAID over the years in Central America and the Caribbean, Sub-Saharan Africa, Central Asia, Southeast Asia, and globally. So we're very pleased to be working with USAID on this for the successful implementation of this program that could leverage up to $1 billion worth of clean energy investments in the region. And this project is closing next month, so we're happy to be showcasing our grant recipients and hoping that they will be leveraging the work that they've done with Jorge and the CEFF-CCA team, as well as USAID, for additional investment in their program. So with that, I'll turn it over to our good friend Jorge here for an introduction on the program.
Thank you very much, Paul. As you noted, it is the third. We're closing our webinar series, 3 webinars. The first one was the change makers. The second one, which focused on the innovators, the innovation type of initiatives that we saw. The second one was the market makers, funds, financing studies, market studies, and the like. And we're closing with the risk takers, or the entrepreneurs in the renewable energy and energy efficiency space in Central America and the Caribbean. It has been for us an enormous pleasure to be able to work with these grantees that will be showcasing their projects today. I will be introducing CEFF-CCA and giving a brief summary on the program, its objectives, what it has accomplished, etc. But before I do that, I want to extend an enormous layer of appreciation to Christine and USAID, Christine Pendzich from USAID, with whom we have worked to make this program a success. And with their leadership, this has been a success. And I would like to turn it over to Christine for a few moments. She may want to, so that she can say a couple of words on the program and USAID, etc. I'll leave it to you, Christine, and then I will take it back to do the CEFF-CCA presentation.
Great, thank you, Jorge. Good morning, all. This is Christine Pendzich from the LAC Bureau at the U.S. Agency for International Development, and I wanted to just take 1 minute to welcome you all to this program that was launched 3 years ago to advance energy resilience and self-sufficiency in Central America and the Caribbean. We hope that this moves us forward. We do also trust that this moves the countries forward on their journey to self-reliance in perhaps, sort of project by project, but important ways. It's been a great privilege and really a joy to work with ECODIT and with all of our project implementers. I think we've had the real privilege of working with very dynamic and hard-working project implementers. Very happy we could back them at hopefully a crucial moment in their financing efforts, and very excited to get their stories before you all, hopefully as a chance to bring in new partners to keep these projects going and replicating across the regions. So thanks very much from USAID. I also have to mention, it's as a very important point, that this was a joint project with the State Department, with the U.S. Trade and Development Agency, and with OPIC, all of whom have participated with their funding, their knowledge, and their support for these projects. So thank you to everyone, and I look forward to hearing more about the development of these projects over time. Thanks. Back to you, Jorge.
Thank you very much, Christine. As Christine indicated, the focus of this webinar will be on the grantees and on the advances that have been made, the vision that allow them to position themselves in order to benefit from this type of blended finance as they move forward and as they execute their plans. And that's the purpose. As with every other webinar, I will now give you a brief introduction or a brief description of the CEFF-CCA program. So I'm going to take control of the presentation now. And again, this is the final of the 3 webinar series, and this is focused on the entrepreneurs in the renewable energy and clean energy space. So CEFF-CCA, as indicated by Christine, was established by USAID, by OPIC, by the USTDA, and the Department of State in 2015. The focus has been development funding to strengthen clean energy projects and initiatives. It's not an immaterial point. There is an entire cycle for projects as they develop, and on occasion, some projects stay or are not quite prepared to advance to the financing stage or to find a strategic partner. And so blended finance, in this case grant financing, is a very effective tool for projects that are moving in that direction to be able to execute and get much closer to their objectives. CEFF-CCA concludes this year, in fact, in about a month. We're pleased to say that we have allocated all of our funds and that the grantees have been producing the expected results, some of whom have also taken the next step forward in their development. And it focuses, it's important to also note that it was a $10 million fund, all of them grants. It supported the technical, business, social, and environmental financing, et cetera, whatever type of consulting, of study, of step that was required to strengthen a piece of the project as it advanced. It's important to note our role was to support a specific angle, a specific study. The entrepreneurs were the ones who originated the project and are going to be the ones who will close on their projects. And ECODIT is the implementer under contract to USAID, as Paul very well described at the beginning. The types of projects were renewable energy and energy efficiency projects. Within that scope, however, there was ample margin to be able to incorporate studies, to be able to incorporate focus on the environment or on demand or on technical studies, as well as assisting in the closing of some projects. The objective was to address obstacles and barriers to the next stage. The applicants were from the private sector. They were project owners, NGOs, civil society. We had a university who was a significant participant, and the countries that we worked in were in the Caribbean and in Central America, all of whom were represented, or most of whom were represented in the program. The selection criteria was very important. Social, environmental, and economic benefits are at the top, and social and environmental are first in that list for a specific reason. We're looking to focus on energy security. We're also looking to focus on the energy transition to a cleaner approach to generation and production processes. We wanted to see positive impacts on energy access, on energy security, poverty alleviation, gender inclusion. We wanted to ensure that we wanted to see projects that were actively working in the space, that were creating jobs, creating opportunities where there hadn't really been harvested, where they hadn't been harvested enough yet. And they should leverage at least $20 for every dollar spent. So every grant dollar spent needed to be leveraged to 20 times at the very least. We're pleased to say we leveraged much more. Also, the financial additionality, we needed to fill a funding gap, an actual need, a development costs, or accelerate the process, attract participants, and address a barrier. There were 92 applications received, 70% from Central America, 30% from the Caribbean, 82% were renewable energy related projects, 5% were energy efficiency, and 13% were enabling type of initiatives, funds, or market and demand studies, for instance. 23 grants were awarded, Several of them are listed here. I will let you, this presentation is public. You will be able to read it at your convenience. You will be able to read it at your convenience. It's important to note that several of the projects described have already presented and been showcased in prior webinars, and some will be showcased during this webinar as well. The impacts are that it leveraged very nearly $1 billion, total potential installed capacity of 524 megawatts, annual generation of over 1 million megawatts hour, total potential beneficiaries nearly 3 million people, and GHG reductions, an important element and metric of over 800,000 tons of CO2 equivalents per year. In this particular case, we're going to showcase 4 projects. They will be telling you their story, and they will be introducing themselves. For COMMITTMENT, which is a lead developer of a 37 megawatt grid connected solar PV project in Jamaica. It is a project that has closed financially and civil works have begun. There's a lot of yellow iron, as we like to say, already on site. Agropecuaria is a project that's a groundbreaking waste to energy project in Costa Rica. Waste to energy projects take all sorts of, are all types and all sorts, usually have their own unique set of circumstances. They tend to be a little bit difficult. The technology is complex, and the agreements to make these projects successful is complex. So the entrepreneur who takes these on has quite a challenge. We're pleased to say that this is one of the projects that we would like to that we are showcasing as well, given their experience in Costa Rica. Then Vegas Electric, which is applying the ESCO model using renewable energy and energy efficiency in island markets. In this particular case, it's in Honduras, but its focus is the business opportunity in island markets. And then Solar Axiom, whose focus has been to strengthen service and cost-efficient solutions by incorporating renewable energy in the tourism sector of the Eastern Caribbean. These are really small islands. The scales are different. The regulatory structure tends to be a little, a part of the issues to address, but it is part and parcel of doing a project as an entrepreneur in either a small market or where scale matters and with a certain type of client. The way I think that we're going to have a very interesting session. I'm going to remind the speakers that we're going to have 12 minutes each, and I will be letting you know when you're approaching your limit. The first speaker is from 8 Rivers, which is I mentioned it as COMMITTMENT because that was a development company, but we're one of the lead developers. 8 Rivers is a project in Jamaica, and I will let Angela take it from here. Angela is the CEO of the project. Go ahead, Angela.
Perfect. Well, Jorge, thank you very much for the introduction. Let me just do a sound check. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes. Perfect.
So really excited to be part of this panel. I think this project, it's been a number of years from idea to now reality. It's under construction, and so being part of what the risk taker, the entrepreneur panel and forum is really honoring, because I think as we'll go through the slides, just to show what it takes to go from really a PowerPoint presentation and getting stakeholders, including groups such as USAID, to believe in you as an entrepreneur, and to something that doesn't exist yet, and then have that creative element to make it exist. I think that's super important. So I'm going to take you through the presentation and take it from there. So first slide. So just a quick project overview. So it's a 37 megawatt solar power plant in Jamaica. The background basically for Jamaica, as it is with a number of other Caribbean islands, is that our energy prices are exceedingly high. It is one of the main deterrents and inhibitors for economic growth in the country. And so the government, through the regulator back in 2012, basically encouraged developers to come in and to propose projects. We tried earlier, myself and my partners, NEON. Unfortunately, we're not successful the first time. I'll go through the story. And then we were successful a few years ago in winning this project. The project is located on the western side of the island, which is a very rural part of the country, and that was kind of important for us, and I think also is in line with USAID's goals, because you can imagine the economic impact locally, in addition to nationally, that having this type of project built can basically create. Key sponsors, NEON International, which is a French IPP. They're really the first ones who I partnered with, and again, we'll kind of go through the slide which goes through the story, but they bring a wealth of knowledge and expertise in terms of developing these projects. But I think what's really special here is a combination of that plus, myself as a local developer, I am from Jamaica, I'm from the region, and combining the two together, that I think was a very powerful combination for project implementation. MPC Capital, which I'll mention later as well, came in later on in terms of providing project equity for us to build out the plant. So energy production around 82 gigawatt hours per year. To put into context, overall, keeping in mind that solar is, it is intermittent power, but we will represent around 5% of the country's electricity needs currently. Our tariff, which we're most proud of, came in at 8.5 cents, which is very, very low compared to the existing alternatives. So in Jamaica, the average retail price is usually in the 20 cents plus per kilowatt hour, and it has been as high as 40 US cents. It pretty much tracks crude oil because over 90% of the country's electricity is currently still generated through fossil fuels. That is changing with the with the inclusion of gas and renewables, but it's still very, very high. And so to be able to deliver this project in a cost-effective way, including the support on the early stage development from USAID, I think really was instrumental in making it happen. The total investment amount in the end is around $65 million. So Jorge, I guess this really speaks to your point in terms of leveraging, being able to put money in through USAID, but then having a lot of impact in the end in terms of investments in the country. And our expected commissioning date is kind of the middle of next year. And there are a number of key features that we liked about Jamaica and the project: is very strong solar radiation, good regulatory framework. The IPP has a good track record. There's just a lot of positivity, and probably most importantly, listed here is that we had very strong community support, and that kind of echoes throughout the presentation as being really important. So I'm just going to show this very briefly, probably not the entire video because you won't hear any sound, but wanted to really take the webinar participants to Jamaica, show you what the site used to look like. Unfortunately, we do not have drone footage of what it's like now, but it's very different. But you can see it's pretty much where we look to build. It's obviously a beautiful country, but it is a rural community. It was important to us that we weren't displacing any key activity. So the land, which you can see is in what we call bush, had pretty much been in the family of a single landowner for a very long period of time. And part of the reason why we liked this property was it was flat, it's near to the necessary infrastructure, which made it a really positive project. And also, nothing was really being done with the land. I mean, there was residual. It used to be a cattle farm, but the cattle industry hasn't really done well in Jamaica. And then they tried doing a bit of sugarcane on the property. So you can see we're pretty much bordered by some local communities, rural communities, but it's a really, really good site for developing the project. So entrepreneurial side, this is the risk taker forum. So with an entrepreneur, it always starts with an idea. That's August 2012 is pretty much when it occurred. What happened there is I got a call from a very old gentleman, Mr. Frank Phipps, saying that Jamaica was changing its regulation where independent developers could for the first time develop renewable energy projects, and he wanted me to take a look at it. My background is in finance. I'm not an engineer, even though I've had to learn some of the engineering, but pretty much it all started with the seed being planted by someone who inspired me to look at a sector that has really hampered the growth of my country and try to do it in a way that was clean, sustainable, and ultimately cost effective. But an idea is only take you so far as an entrepreneur, especially as an individual. Usually you need to then start building out a team and bring on the right financing partners, but also technical partners. And that came, fortunately, in the form of a group called NEON, who I mentioned before. NEON, they were great. I mean, I still remember the meeting. It was in November, cold, beautiful Paris. And, pretty much showed up with a PowerPoint presentation and made the case that, look, you're in France, you've done really well in Europe, but in a lot of European countries at that point in time, solar still needed to be subsidized. In the Caribbean, there was no subsidy required. This is purely an economic decision where the cost of electricity is so high that it made a lot of sense. And you always go through a number of no's, but then there was a CEO, Xavier. He took a chance on an entrepreneur who had an idea, and basically we partnered, which is great. So we then created 8 Rivers as our bidding entity and joint company. And very early on, we started engaging with the community, meeting with local stakeholders to gauge their interest in the project. We bid in 2013. Unfortunately, we did not win. A lot of that was because we just lost to the better person on that day. So it is what it is. But as any good entrepreneur knows and risk taker, you always take risks. You don't always win, but if at first you don't succeed, you always seem to try again. I think most of the entrepreneurs I know and risk takers who are successful are usually, they go through a number of failures before they succeed. And I forgot the Churchill quote, but basically it's like, it's about how do you come back from all those failures and continue that really defines your success. So 2015, effectively Jamaica didn't fill all of its renewable energy capacity. They wanted to bring in what they call firm power, but none of the firm power proposals were really getting off, or in terms of viable. So they went back out and said, look, any type of technology is available, you can bid for it. At this point in time, and I'll just speak as a personal story, I mean, my dad had got really ill. Actually, he ended up, so I had to go back and find a normal job. And so when this bid tender came back out, it was after he had just passed away. I was now working back in private equity, and NeoN came to me, actually, even though the first time I went to them, and they said, look, the tender is back, we want to try again. Being the risk taker I am, I effectively worked 2 jobs. So I did private equity during the day, and then during Paris time and Jamaica time, pretty much worked with NeoN to put together our second bid. We submitted in 2016, and surprise, surprise, we won in May 2016. I was honestly very surprised. Again, the deal I had with NeoN was on that point in time, now I had to raise my own capital. They would cover their share, but I had to raise my own side of the capital required, including the early stage development money. And so I actually left my private equity job, again, part of the risk taking side of it, because I had to raise money and do this full time. So I took the risk that I'm going to focus on this full time, and brought in additional partners. That's when kind of USAID came in first. That's when we needed development money, which to speak to Jorge, we really needed that gap to be filled. And then MPC, they were coming in with the project equity, but really that early stage development capital needed someone to provide, and that's where really the CEFF-CCA grant was instrumental. December 2016, we got a regeneration license. We signed the PPA. Jan 2017, a lot of that was also funded by USAID in terms of the legal costs. And anyone who's on the phone who knows about energy, really that PPA, that is what you need to make everything come together. Without that contract, your project is still very much an idea. Provided also is a good counterpart on the PPA. So we had our PPA signed, and then we launched into more development programs, and really getting the engineering done, the feasibility studies, all of those great things that make the project, and working with the community. We involved groups such as the Clinton Foundation, which was great in doing solar training. So in line with kind of the USAID mentality of it being socially driven, not just economically driven, we were focused on bringing on groups and to engage with the community. We started construction towards the end of 2017. Financial close was slightly delayed for a number of reasons, which I won't go into here, but in the end, we managed to get it across the line June, so just a few months ago. And financial close is a key milestone for us, because that enabled us to raise all the funding required for the project to build it out, and the debt financing was provided by Proparco and FMO. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time just doing a deeper dive into USAID's support for the project. So here, what I show is basically some of the key things that.
2 minutes.
Go ahead.
2 minutes.
How many minutes? 10?
2.
Okay.
2
minutes left. Okay, so look, there's a lot of funding gaps you can see in terms of the framework and things that USAID funded. I'm going to skip over. I had a second video, which shows like basically an overview key message on the ground. But what I'm going to do is I want to go through the so what, because I think that's really important. So what of this project? Energy security, which is really key. So we're saving Jamaica over $250 million over the next 20 years in terms of fuel costs. And that's on the basis of a $50 per barrel. I think the last time I checked, it was close to 70. And it removes a lot of reliance that we currently have on fuel imports, because the sun is free, and the sun is something we have. Emissions reduction, I mean, we reduce carbon emissions due to fuel substitution. Poverty alleviation, it's a number of things, but including, you know, the money that we would spend to go towards buying, you know, oil or gas, we can basically use that to reinvest in the country, and to put that towards education and healthcare. And then lastly, I guess just on the local development, creates employment both during the construction and operational period, and then there's a knowledge transfer as well. So just in closing, I guess there's just a couple key takeaways, especially from being an entrepreneur. I think number one thing is make sure you're doing a solid project that has a good value proposition. Two, engagement with the local stakeholders and key communities key. And then three, on the team, it's a team of not only bringing in the international expertise, local expertise, but also the right type of, you know, funding partners, which the USAID really came through on. Lastly, be patient. It doesn't always work the first time. And then on 5, take a chance, take the risk, because without risk, there's no reward. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Angela. This has been an extremely successful grantee, an extremely successful project. Very much a risk taker, and it is a project we visited not too long ago. And can attest especially to the relations with the community, which is not minor by any stretch. I think it's one of the keys to success, in addition to the patience and the ability to take a chance. We're very proud to support it. Thank you very much, Angela. There may be questions afterwards, but they will be after all the presentations. The next presenter will be Guillermo from Agropecuaria, and he is going to talk to us about his waste to energy project, which is attracting a great deal of attention from the local utility and from some of the communities surrounding that project. Guillermo, I'm going to let you take it from here. You have 12 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we want to start first by telling you a little bit about the company. So our company is a Costa Rican company, and we're advocating the development of a solid waste to energy plant in Costa Rica through a process known as gasification. So I'm not going to go too much into the technical detail of the plant, but if anyone has any questions, we're more than happy to answer about the technical aspect. But we just want to kind of give you an overview of how we established our steps to get to the stage we are, and the help we received from ECODIT, from CEFF, and how they've helped us get to the stage where we are now. So our main goals with this project was not just finding a clean energy, reliable source. What we were also looking for was a waste management solution. The reason for this is, well, we're going to tell you a little bit about the country, about Costa Rica, and the points that are relevant to us. So Costa Rica is a peaceful and stable country. We have a ready available skilled workforce, a really good infrastructure, and we're undergoing a period of development. And we think this development is really important for the country, but at the same time, the development is producing a lot of excess waste. And the second point about Costa Rica is our biodiversity, which is something that brings us a lot of tourism, and these two factors kind of conflict with each other in a way. So our business was set up to find a way to produce clean energy, to manage waste, and to reduce the impact on the environment. Okay, one sec. Okay, so for waste management in Costa Rica, we have a problem because we have limited space. A lot of the space we do have is protected, and the current waste management issues in the country is it's basically a landfill situation. So what we wanted to do is find a way to kind of tackle that problem, but also in a useful way. So our idea was to produce a waste-to-energy plant, which could help alleviate the situation and also produce a clean, reliable energy source. So our plant, the location we chose to establish was in Leon Cortez, about 30 miles from San Jose. So the location is important for us. First of all, it's a very rural area. There's limited development in the area. So we wanted to bring something that could bring kind of employment to the area. It is a small project, so the employment opportunities are limited, but we wanted to bring skilled quality employment to the area. So we talked with the municipality in Leon Cortez. We made an agreement with a local landfill site where we could establish the project. We already have in place an employment system. So we're working to provide employment opportunities for local women in the area. And that's something that's been really important to us to kind of get the community involved in the project. Okay. So our objectives, as I talked before, is a waste-to-energy plant through gasification. And our plant is small scale, but we hope it to be a template to expand further into Costa Rica and beyond. So we kind of want this plant to be an example to see if what we're doing, if the work we're doing can be scaled further and we can produce something that can really help the country. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go to give you an overview. So we were established in 2003. We started as a small company, and our first 5 years were research and development. So that was us investigating kind of what the problems were and how we could find solutions to these problems. 2008, we identified Leon Cortez, and we were committed at this point to the solid waste to energy plant. We made an agreement with the municipality of Leon Cortez to allow us to install the plant, but at this stage we still had many hurdles, a lot of red tape, a lot of negotiations that were really difficult and kind of stalled the process. But we persisted, and in 2015 we were at a stage where we were almost ready, but we still had kind of issues that we needed to get over. We needed agreement and kind of proof, research about the environmental impact of the plant and how it's going to relate to the environmental laws and rules in Costa Rica. So at this point, we applied to CEFF for funding, and we're happy that we were successful. The funding and the support that we got from CEFF, from USAID and from ECODIT was really important to us. It gave us kind of an added confidence in the project. What we were doing was right. The many years of work, that the results that we had so far were kind of, we were going in the right direction. And with this support, it really propelled the project forward to where we are today. So last year we got interest from ICE, which is the kind of the national energy company of Costa Rica. To have their support is really important to us because they're the main energy supply in Costa Rica, and with them on board, we've really been able to kind of get the project to where it is now. And the stage we are now is the pre-production stage. So we hope to have the project established by 2020. and to be in production at this time. And we really want to say that for us, the project has been kind of a lot of hard work, a lot of stress, but with this support and at the stage we are now, we're really happy with what we're doing, with the kind of the way the project is going, and the partnerships we've got from CEFF, and just the way we've been given this opportunity to improve the future of Costa Rica and to introduce this method that's going to provide clean, reliable energy, and is going to make a big change for Costa Rica for the future. So if anyone has any questions about the technical aspects of the plant, about us, we're more than happy to answer. And thank you for the support, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Guillermo. I want to highlight a couple things before we move to the next presenter. First of all, waste energy projects are not all the same. In this particular case, this is not a combustion type, this is a gasification project with new technology. And it addresses some important issues that every single economy faces, which is the how to manage their power needs, and grow their power needs, but at the same time how to address a growing, a strong economy that's generating a great deal of waste. And in order to do that, agropecuaria was needed a technical component, needed to work with the local municipalities, needed to work locally, and also with the local power company. So it's a different type of entrepreneurial venture in that sense, and yet also an impacting entrepreneurial venture because of the benefits, and beyond the jobs and the environmental benefit, the solution to an important problem that is common throughout the region. So I'm sure there's going to be plenty of questions. Thank you very much. I think I'll stop here, and we can move on to the presentation of Vegas Electric. I'm going to introduce Mr. Charles George, who's the CEO of Vegas Electric, another entrepreneur in the space. And I'm going to leave it for you, Charles. You have 12 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Jorge, and good morning. We're really pleased to be involved in the CEFF-CCA initiative. I want to reiterate what Angela said, that it has certainly helped us to fill in the gaps and take our ideas and what we've already put into place and create a real bankable, investable solution. This morning, I'd like to highlight Vegas Electric and showcase our capabilities and offer you an opportunity to share with us in our success. We're based on Roatan and provide cost-effective energy solutions throughout the Bay Islands. This is an area notable for an elevated level of economic activity, which is driven by the tourism industry and foreign investment. Let's be absolutely clear, we are not a startup looking to make a fast buck and then bail out. Vegas Electric is solidly established with an impressive track record. We boast a stable, well-trained staff, and our management and supervisory personnel have been with us for nearly 20 years. We are the leader in providing comprehensive electrical contracting services, and our renewable energy and energy efficiency offerings are supported by a full suite of applicable technologies. Our design and engineering personnel are trained, certified, and include experience in lead commissioning. Our procurement capabilities are well honed, including duty-free importation. We are very proud of our industry partnerships. Because we are dealers or manufacturer representatives, we're able to provide full factory level warranty support for all equipment that we install. This is essential to our success in ensuring long-term performance for our installations. Unfortunately, throughout the region, there's no enforcement of electrical codes or standards. So to ensure that our installations meet internationally recognized standards, Vegas Electric continually invests in training and certification for our personnel. We're active members of professional organizations serving our industry, enabling us to access and to keep current with applicable codes and standards in the face of rapidly evolving technologies. Since our founding in 1987, we have sought to continually develop our capabilities and better serve our clients. Beginning in 1993, installing small off-grid renewable energy systems. Moving forward, and in 2006, becoming the first certified PV installer in the Central American region. In 2008, we were qualified to offer small wind turbines. And in 2011, we began integrating solar water heating and solar pumping into our offerings. Our 2014 participation in the PFAN program helped to mature our project development skills. And in 2015, we secured $85,000 of low interest financing for a boutique hotel energy efficiency upgrade. Building on that success, we obtained a $100,000 financing package for a solar thermal installation at a dive resort. And earlier this year, I joined a team providing lead commissioning services for a $13 million facility. We're serving a very dynamic market with a high cost of energy, known as one of the highest costs of energy throughout the region. Additionally, the local utility does not offer a feed-in tariff or net metering program. The cost of energy makes the economic case, as Angela said, without artificial incentives. Together, these factors create a singular market opportunity. The overall residential market is valued at $31 million with a 4% market penetration by Vegas Electric. We project the 10-year market to be valued at $25 million. Similarly, there's a $33 million commercial market, but penetration currently is only 1%. The 10-year value of this market is $27 million. The hospitality sector offers the greatest market opportunity with a $40 million value, less than 2% currently served, and a 10-year projected value of $41 million. As you can see, residential market penetration is significantly greater than the commercial or hospitality sectors. The reason is residential scale projects can be self-financed, while external financing is needed to increase penetration in the commercial and hospitality sectors. Our market study has conservatively projected an overall market value of $93 million over the next 10 years. These 10-year projections are based on a 5% annual growth and a total market penetration of 50%. We employ a comprehensive approach to project development, beginning with a detailed energy audit and evaluation. In designing our energy solutions, we're technologically agnostic, integrating multiple strategies and technologies to provide maximum value for our client. We have developed a proprietary tool for evaluating the economics of a project. This tool enables us to analyze multiple financing scenarios, evaluate economic performance of individual technologies, and get a snapshot of the essential economic markers. While with the high cost of energy, we can maintain a healthy margin on our projects, while the energy savings enables our client to pay off his initial investment in less than 4 years. Vegas Electric had created a business development roadmap prior to applying for the CEFF-CCA grant, so we were able to effectively use the CEFF-CCA funds by focusing our efforts to fill in our operational gaps. Performing the market study and developing a market strategy was a vital first step. This market study validated our experience and confirmed that access to external financing is the key to growing the commercial and hospitality markets. The market strategy informed our approach to project development and provided structure for our project implementation process. Because accurate monitoring is essential to ensuring system performance and return on investment, we developed a strategy for integrating multiple technologies into a single monitoring solution. Strengthening of our financial management capabilities has included a financial audit and an internal audit. And our organizational design has been realigned to support our evolution into the ESCO space. Vegas Electric's foundation has been built by reinvesting our profits with recent direct support from the CEFF-CCA program. For most of our history, we bootstrapped our growth by investing our profits back into the business. We've grown organically with a focus on bolstering our capabilities to continuously enhance the services we offer. And we've proven our expertise by successfully implementing $3 million worth of renewable energy and energy efficiency solutions. Securing a moderate amount of project financing enabled us to scale up, break into the hospitality market, and boost our annual growth. And we're now prepared to grow exponentially as we gain access to project financing resources. Our market study identified the most lucrative sectors, and we've developed a strategy to effectively direct our resources at these markets. With this targeted approach, over the next 10 years, we anticipate a 50% penetration of the $90 million market. Our portfolio contains a diversity of project structures that employ multiple technologies. What sets us apart is our demonstrated expertise in applying the appropriate technology to the project requirements. This ensures optimal value for our clients and maximum returns for our investment partners. We are seeking to develop partnerships and alliances with individuals or businesses that share our focus. The diversity in project structures means that we can offer a flexible approach to project financing, a broad range of investment scenarios, opportunities for technology-specific structured alliances, and opportunities to partner with Vegas Electric through equity investment or debt financing, either for a single project or an aggregated portfolio. Dedicated to quality and committed to service. Since 1987, this has been our promise to our clients, our partners, and our investors. Our unconditional guarantee is backed by a vast experience, our proven track record, a loyal client base, and our innate knowledge of the market. We invite you to join in our success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charles, for that presentation. I would like to highlight a couple of things. Certainly, as Charles indicated, a different type of entrepreneurial experience. This is not a startup. This is a company that existed and that was already operating and successful in its market. And it saw an opportunity that was demand-driven, and then began to be active in the renewable energy and energy efficiency space. The other point that's highlightable, which was also made by Angela, is that there is no need for any type of subsidy in this market because the economic case is extremely compelling. And yet, even so, the market growth takes time and takes resources. So bootstrapping gets you to a certain point, and certainly a successful business venture, but there is a fair amount of opportunity left to harvest. So I want to thank Charles for that presentation. This was, again, as with the other grantees, a project with whom it was a pleasure to work with, and we're pleased that the CEFF-CCA USAID funds, were instrumental for that gap, for that next stage, as with the project in Jamaica from 8 Rivers, the project in Leon Cortes, the waste to energy in Costa Rica, and now off the coast of Honduras, the Honduran Caribbean. So now I'm going to turn it over to Elio Mueller, who is the CEO of Solar Axiom, and will be sharing his experiences as an entrepreneur in the Eastern Caribbean. Thank you, Elio.
Thank
Could
you,
you
Jorge.
go ahead?
Thank you, Jorge. Wait a minute, my slide wasn't working. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, Solar Axiom is a developer of solar distributed energy projects in Florida and in the Caribbean. We are focused on commercial and industrial clients and particular emphasis on resorts. We're working with smaller projects between 100 kilowatts and 1 megawatt per site. Our company is fully self-funded. We have 3 platforms. We build, own, operate, we build, own, transfer, or we develop giving services for a fee. We have our own in-house expertise in engineering and project finance, development, and asset management. While our company is a 3-year-old company in the solar field, we have migrated over capabilities of over 20 years of experience from our related companies in the area of distributed generation, fuels, and project finance in Latin America, US, and Spain. The study that we performed under the grant from USAID was focused at the Eastern Caribbean, particularly with a partner group that owns 4 resorts and 3 commercial properties on the island of Antigua in the island country of Antigua and Barbuda. This project was a very, very deep study that was the first of its kind, going into resorts in the Caribbean and looking at their particular energy consumption needs, their energy production on site, their energy distribution, and their ability to assimilate various sizes of solar energy. The subject case was studied at all 7 of their properties, and we also engaged while we were there in policy solutions with the local utility and government, and trying to work through some of the obstacles that exist for commercial industrial customers in this region. We encountered many of the challenges that are to be found in the Caribbean and small isolated markets. These issues are the fact that there are few possibilities of utility scale projects, which leaves you with the C&I market mostly and these resorts. There's a small universe of large commercial consumers that can be aggregated for any kind of scale. Very few larger banks active in the region that you can have a serious conversation with about project financing. Varying renewable energy regulation regimes. Each country almost has a different regime. We did a full analysis and comparison of the entire region, all of the island nations, as well as the British and US island models. And then there's a variety of technical issues that arise unique from these isolated grids. All of this was part of our study and our review. Not doing good with this. Sorry, folks.
Hi, Elio. This is Paul. You can use the left key usually to go back in the slides and the right key to go forward.
Okay, let me get back on track and I'll do that.
Is that working for you?
Not yet. I'm trying to get back to where I was. I'm sorry.
Here, I'm gonna. Which slide were you on?
I was on a few possibilities of the Caribbean and small isolated market issues. There you go. Sorry. Yeah, my left key is not working either. Can I get you to just do them for me? Something's wrong here, Mike.
Yeah, please just say slide when you're ready.
Okay, slide please. If you could go to the next one, please. So one of the things that we requested the grant for, one back, one of the things that we knew was a problem from hearing from our customers in the region was what we have coined the phrase as a passive aggressive resistance to distributed solar generation. These small isolated grids have a lot of concerns. Some are technical, some are not. Their small isolated grids are concerned about the technical issues, obviously, produced by solar. They're concerned about the variation of energy between cloudy moments and not. We're talking about Antigua that has a 50 megawatt grid, and we were proposing a variety of sites that amounted to about 3.5 megawatts of solar power on a 50 megawatt grid. The other issues are related to the government and the utilities being concerned about their revenues. When we're impacting the larger commercial industrial customers, we're impacting resorts, we're impacting the highest ratepayers. We're talking about the larger consumers of energy on that grid, and the government and the utilities are absolutely concerned about any displacement of that revenue. They also are very good at using their monopolies on these islands to control laws and regulations, in many cases to absolutely shut down commercial customers from self-generation. And then there's a commitment to the existing generation and distribution, despite how poor it may be and how challenging it may be to them. There is a certain commitment to it. There are some other challenges that come out of this. There's a monopoly of knowledge by the utilities and the government. The commercial industrial customers don't come to the table with the same kind of knowledge and expertise, even when the regulations are being discussed or changed. There's no advocacy or expertise on behalf of the resorts, for example, to impact these rules that are governing their ability to do solar. Next slide, please. Now, the resorts and the larger commercial industrial can be very good customers for a developer. From our standpoint, we're talking about grids where the power is very expensive. Some of these Eastern Caribbean islands are in the 42 to 45 cents a kilowatt hour as far as the tariff being paid. We also believe that we can reduce that considerably, that we can leave some money to be paid to the grid for the support of the grid, that we can create some significant savings for these customers, and that we can make a margin as a developer. These resorts are large consumers. They're mostly qualified as creditworthy, and they're able to support underlying credit for different debt facilities that we may use for bundling in the region. And some of these resorts own multiple properties and multiple island countries. So it becomes a very good source of customers for us in the size and scale that we're working. Next slide, please. Now, addressing the technical issues was paramount. We found that it was some amount of noise being put up as an obstacle, and then some amount of reasonable concern. So we dealt with the reasonable concern. We came in with very deep engineering review of the C&I sites, and we designed in engineering, electrical engineering for post-storm resilience. We introduced innovative best practices relevant to small grids, and we showed how we could resolve many voltage issues that existed in their grid. Their grid in Antigua, some of the resorts we were at have as much as a 30% technical line loss, with the voltage so poor at the resort that they were having to operate their backup generators some 90–95% of the time. We also designed in the use of batteries to stabilize the loads. So our study, our analysis, our engineering helped get the technical objection from the grid out of the way so that we can address the greater issues. Next slide, please. Now, the other challenge.
You have about a minute 45 seconds, just so you know.
Okay, thanks. The other challenge we had was the financing on these small markets, and we've been addressing that by bundling through debt facilities. A particular note, a strategy that emerged in our interaction with OPIC was to put together a lease facility that we can create one big bundle of finance and then lease out the equipment to multiple jurisdictions. We are focused now on trying to use everything that we found to get over the regulatory issues. Our customers are all ready to go. There's no lack of customers for us. We come in with our own finance, our own equity. We address the customer by saying that they have to put up no capital, and we start lowering their power bill immediately. Our challenge has been these regulatory issues that we are now working through. Of course, we're also working in places that are not like Antigua. We're working in U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. British Virgin Islands, we have a project on a resort under construction right now, and our market is considerable in light of the fact that we have a pipeline of projects all over the region, from the Bahamas to St. Lucia, Grenadines, Barbados, and we're very excited to be in this market. We're very pleased that we got this feasibility study grant from USAID, because I could tell you that we would have been looking at different markets if we had to spend all of our own money in order to do the study in this very challenging small market.
Okay, Elio, are you concluded? I'm sorry.
I have.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. I didn't see that slide. Okay. Thank you very much, Elio. I think that what we will do now is we're going to proceed with the questions. What will happen is if you have typed in a question, I will be able to see it, and please indicate to whom, and I will go ahead and ask the question. I will remind everybody that at 12:30 Eastern Time, there is a hard stop. So let's get to the questions and see what kind of questions we have received. I don't see any questions right now.
Hold on, let me just pull them up for you. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry.
There are a number of questions that we've received regarding how tariffs have been calculated for these projects. I think the first one came with our first presentation, so it was probably for Angela.
Okay, so it's just a general question on how the tariffs were calculated?
Yeah, I mean, I think how you guys chose the tariffs that you guys are choosing to pass on to your customers.
So, I mean, basically in Jamaica, it was a competitive tender process. So we effectively ran, I mean, it comes down to effectively your view on cost of capital. So we would have, an idea as to what our investors need to be able to, well, both their investors and the banks, what return is required to make them comfortable for the risk that they're taking with investing in the solar project. And on the back of that, then you kind of put in all the assumptions that you can make to your best stability given the uncertainties, because we're basically asked to bid the tariff in advance of winning the contract. So it's a number of inputs. It would be kind of cost of capital, what you think the project is going to ultimately cost in terms of build cost, and then you layer on the risk. So I mean, there are a number of, sometimes people will look at different markets and say, oh, are the numbers, shouldn't they all be the same or should they be equivalent? But there's so many variables. I mean, the solar radiation. So for instance, Jamaica, there's a huge difference from one part of the island to another because there are certain microclimates, so that's going to affect your yield. If you are looking at countries like in Saudi Arabia, it's also scale. So you have a certain scale of project versus if you're doing a gigawatt of solar in like Mexico or in Saudi Arabia, it's completely apples to oranges. So I think with all investors, when they come up with a tariff, if they have to bid the tariff, it's usually done on the basis of kind of what's your expected cost of capital, the return on your investment, and ultimately kind of what you think it's going to cost for the investment to for the plant to be built.
Angela, a quick follow-up there. Did you, as did other bidders, have an idea of what kind of tariff the regulator was looking for, or did you just do your own calculations and using your best ability, you responded in that way?
So we know what the previous tender was awarded at. So
right.
Only a few years before the solar plant that's currently there, I think they won it just below 19 cents, and we're half of that. But to be fair to the previous winner, the market has also changed. I mean, effectively, solar pricing had halved. It had come down significantly over that period of time in terms of cost of equipment, but also technology enhancements as well. So the regulator does not say what price. The very first tender, they had put kind of a cap, which was on the basis of I can't remember who did the report, whether it's IDB. It was basically a non-governmental institution that gave indications as to where they think the technology should be, but they effectively chose the best, the lowest cost of electricity for the consumer.
Okay, thank you very much. Now there's a question for Guillermo. It says, to the waste to energy project, who is your energy off-taker? Who are you looking to buy the energy? And is there anything that you can share in terms of the pricing that the energy could be sold for? Guillermo?
To repeat it again.
Hi, could you repeat the question again, please?
Yes. To the waste to energy project, who will be your energy off-taker? Who will buy the energy? And at what price do you expect, or what are the price points that you expect that the energy will be purchased at? If that's something you can share?
Okay, so our buyer is going to be ECEI, so is the national energy supplier. So they have a set rate that they're going to buy the energy from us. I think the important thing for our project is the interest we've had from ECEI. A lot of it is to do with the environmental impact of the plant, which is what they're interested in more than the economics of the energy development. We do have other income streams from the plant through the process. So it is economically viable, but the interest we've had from ECEI has been more about the green impact and the waste management solution as opposed to just as an energy generation method.
And can you share anything about the tariff? At what tariff you expect to be selling your energy?
Yes, it's 0.7 centavos
Kilowatt.
per kilowatt hour.
Okay, so So 7 cents a kilowatt hour is what you expect.
Yes.
And you will be generating, ESA will be purchasing as the distributor.
Yes, they will. That's correct.
Let me see. All right, there's another question. And the question is there an international exchange platform for this kind of activity? And I think that the platforms that I'm aware of are mostly, well, some funds do have some platforms for exchange of this type of activity. But in addition to that, to present projects, IRENA has a well-known platform to exchange projects, to be able to, for investors and financiers or strategic partners to be able to look at opportunities and then get in contact directly with the projects. Part of the emphasis and the effort of CEFF-CCA, of the CEFF-CCA program, of the USAID and OPIC CEFF-CCA program, it has also been seeking ways to present these projects, give them a platform so that you can share their stories, you can hear their stories. And in that fashion, since everything is public and everything will be up, you will be able to reach out to them directly. So let me go to the next question. Okay, this is a question for the solar projects. And so let's see. How have the project planners and developers, what are you doing about maintenance for these types of projects? Is there an expectation? Have there been programs that have engaged the community in terms of training them for maintenance and generated jobs in that fashion? And yeah, local community involvement, and whether or not you have tied it in with training and maintenance for these types of projects. I think that these projects, I think that this question, perhaps Angela can, since she got so involved with the community in developing her project, I think she can answer.
Sure, happy to take the question. So in terms of maintenance, so we have an kind of an ongoing operations and maintenance contract, an O&M contract with actually the company that's constructing the plant. And we've hired, I mean, basically we've hired from the community or neighboring communities. So how it's worked with the EPC contract, it has been kind of awarded to an international firm, but the vast majority of their employees are local and they're subcontractors. I mean, pretty much it usually have probably oversight from the expat community, but it's being run and built by local employment. In terms of the community engagement, so we have had programs during kind of the development and early construction phase with dealing with the schools. So we've had school competitions actually, which were very good. And that was, done through 8 Rivers and also Clinton Foundation, where we basically were holding training seminars for students and also locals in the community on what solar is, renewable energy, and just how could they get more involved. I think going forward with we basically have a 20-year operating contract, and it will be important to maintain that relationship. And so, we as stakeholders and sponsors are considering how best can we continue to involve both the schools and also the local community who are next to us.
Right. Thank you very much. I don't know, Charles and Elio, if you want to comment on how you foresee maintenance or how you manage maintenance and the engagement with the local community.
I can add on to that, Jorge.
Yep.
Okay. We're not doing anything that's utility scale. We're not doing anything that is on a large scale like that. I think that that's one of the real advantages that we have, in that the interest that we have from our customers, because it's all behind the meter, requires that there is a good integration of O&M efforts on the part of everyone. As much as possible, we'll integrate the customer into that in cases where we're working with the resorts and so on. They typically have a maintenance staff on hand. So we'll try to train them and bring in their part as much as they possibly can. For the technical issues, we generally take care of that ourselves. It's kind of part of what we require in order for us to be able to support our warranty. But I want to stress the opportunity, and I think, you know, Angela has kind of brought it up, and I think our case is much more intensive in that area, is that because we're addressing energy efficiency as well as renewable energy production, we are helping to create a new mentality and a new frame of reference for anyone who's involved in these projects, our off-takers and people in the community, to understand the real value of energy. So it has a social benefit in the fact that the attitude on what energy is and what it's worth becomes a significant factor in the way that we approach installing our programs or our systems. If we're looking at renewable energy production, the mentality typically becomes, oh, energy is cheap, it doesn't really have any extra value. but as we integrate and we focus primarily on the energy efficiency factor first and bring the holistic approach around, we're creating a mentality with our customers and with anyone who has any kind of relationship with our projects of the true overall value of energy.
Okay, thank you. Elio, there's a specific question for you. How do you consider, from the financial point of view, climate change risks due to storms and hurricanes?
From the risk of casualty and storm damage, I suppose, we have two ways. Number one, we really have focused on building a storm resilient product. We have worked with our integrators that have had great success in surviving Maria and Irma last year, and with 80% success. We buy insurance, and our resorts also buy insurance. So we take care of this through insurance and pre-designed engineering. I will add to say that our pre-designed engineering is also working very hard at resilience, so that we could do load shedding and dedicate the solar, the surviving solar after the storm, to power the critical part of the facility. In the hotel, that may be the main building with the restaurant and refrigeration. In a university, for example, that we're looking at, it may be what's going to be a shelter, a gymnasium that's going to be a shelter. So engineering and insurance is the combined factor that we're using.
Elio, would it be fair to say that it also, you have seen that it also presents an opportunity because of the resilience factor that you mentioned, that it is something that the resorts are looking for to be able to self-generate in that more sustainable fashion?
Absolutely has become a very, very important factor since last year, and it is something that we've taken very serious. And since we do have a great deal of electrical engineering capability in-house, we've made that a cornerstone of our marketing and engineering and everything that we're doing. And the sun does come out the day after the storm, and if your equipment has been made robust enough to survive, as ours is, then you have power when the generators run out of fuel, or in one case of a resort we had last year, the generators had floated out to sea. The solar can be there to provide critical power for several days after the storm.
And also to provide water, if I recall correctly, from some of your reports.
Part of the load shedding priority that we do is to the water plant as well. In the case of Antigua, the 4 resorts all had their own water plants, so we are able to also provide resilient power to those water plants. That's correct.
Right. There's been a couple questions about to the solar projects about how do you manage then waste? How do you plan on recycling those the panels? How are you managing that part of the project? But before you answer that question, I'm going to ask a question to Guillermo again, because there was a question about the tipping or gate fee that was proposed for the project. So is there anything that you can share with us about the tipping fee for your waste energy project?
Yeah, okay. So yeah, the waste we're going to use is general municipal waste. We have a sorting process to, but it's general municipal waste. So we have an agreement with the municipality to access the landfill site.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to move on to the recycling question because it's come up several times. And so I wonder, Angela, if you could speak to that. And I don't know if Charles and Elio want to pipe in.
Happy to try, but again, as I mentioned before, I'm not really on the engineering side. I mean, we do have a decommissioning budget for our plant, given the fact that it has a 20-year contract. But in terms of the recycling, I would probably have to defer that question to my partners in terms of the recycling plan.
Okay. Charles or Elio, would you like to add something to that, or share your experience or your view?
In our case, Jorge, solar is not what we push. I mean, it's a part of what we do, obviously, but we're also looking not only at solar PV, we're looking at solar thermal as well. So we're looking at a 20-year life on primarily our solar thermal and 25-year life on our solar PV. At this time, we haven't encountered any issues that we have a large amount of waste. When you understand that solar PV may only be maybe 15% of what the overall investment is as far as our technological solution. So that hasn't come up as an issue for us as being a significant issue that's going to be an impediment to us moving forward.
Okay. Elio, I have a different question for you. And I'm going to remind the speakers that in 7 minutes, we're going to have a hard stop. So Elio, the question is more related to the solar and battery system. It says, given a 1 megawatt load, what capacity would you need for solar and for a battery system in order for the system to remain reliable and address adequacy and is stable?
We have found that in order to get stability, that we need to put something between 15 and 20% of equivalent capacity. And that is just to smoothen the drop of power over a shady period, or when the sun comes back out from behind the cloud in a small grid, to not slam all that load on or off the grid. So that is the smoothening impact. Now we're looking at batteries as they get cheaper and the electronic controls on them get more and more sophisticated. We're looking at batteries for real storage and real resilience, and those solutions, as far as the percentage, looks as varied as the site. We're looking at a project right now in a resort that's on an isolated island, where the solar will not only take on a great deal of the daytime load of the resort, but we want to store enough so that we absolutely mitigate the diesel generators from running hardly at all. So that one is getting a lot more investment on batteries. So if you're connected to the grid, you may not have as much battery. If you're totally isolated, you may have a lot of battery. And in between that spectrum, the engineering and financial solutions will dictate.
Thank you. Charles, there's another question for you, and I think it relates to some of the experience that Elio shared in the Eastern Caribbean. Are you working together with the local and national authorities or in your competitors on the islands, joining forces to overcome regulatory hurdles? In other words, how do you are you facing some of the similar issues that Elio shared in his experience in the Eastern Caribbean, or given the fact that these are different types of systems, residential or just inside behind the meter, that you really haven't faced those types of issues?
Yeah, that's an important point, Jorge. All of our solutions are behind the meter. As a result, we don't get pushback on the part of the utility. Now, there's a general reluctance on the part of the utility company to be able to have any kind of incentive for connection to the grid. In other words, as I mentioned previously, there's no net metering policy or feed-in tariff. And the utility company here seems to think that their biggest profit margin is made on their generation, which perhaps is so, I don't know. Now, it's important to realize that here on the islands, we have privately owned utilities that are serving the public areas, which is different than on the mainland. On the mainland, they have just privatized and they're breaking out the electrical distribution systems there. And there is a set of operational requirements and for the mainland, but some of those haven't been applied over here. So it's kind of a moving target right now. But at this time, with the solutions that we provide, we have not had any kind of regulatory issues. Bear in mind that the critical piece for us is to be able to do this analysis and evaluation, understand our load profile very carefully, when we can incorporate some load shifting from daytime to nighttime loads and vice versa, when we can target daytime loads only, when we can use some energy storage of one sort, either in the hot water department or chemical storage with batteries. And the other thing too is, of course, potential component with small wind fills in the gap at certain times as well. So that's why our systems are completely integrated to meet that, based upon time of day usage and based upon the fact that there is no feed-in tariff.
Okay, thank you very much, Charles. We're about to wrap up. There's one final question that I will address. It says, does CEFF-CCA fund only projects with a guaranteed off-taker? And the example given is the project of the 8 Rivers project in Jamaica. Would CEFF-CCA still have funded the project development? Actually, I will answer this by saying that that's precisely the point of CEFF-CCA, is to not necessarily go with the guaranteed off-taker. We have financed through with the support and leadership of USAID and OPIC, et cetera, and the rest of the funders. The focus has been precisely to address gaps. In the case of 8 Rivers, there was a specific gap to push them across the finish line, as it were. But for every single other project, in the case of Solar Axioms project, it was about doing a deep, in-depth study that would be relevant to the Eastern Caribbean, about the intersection of the regulation of existing commercial relationships, as well as the technical opportunities and the needs. In the case of, and then on again, market studies in the case of universities, or in the case of Vegas Electric. So absolutely not. We funded all sorts of different activities. I think I'm going to end here because I know that it will cut me off. So thank you, panelists. Thank you, everybody, for participating. And this will be public and available on the websites. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity, Jorge.
Thank you very much.